May 25th, 2025, and it is day number, I believe, 18, maybe 18 or 19, one or the other, of 1,825. I'll find that out in a little bit, where I study the subject of leadership each and every day, reading this book, becoming a person. Now I'm reading this book, I should say, becoming a person of influence, because I do desire to be an exceptional leader, because my vision, my passion, the thing that I'm going after is building a church of 2,000 members that impact the world with the word of truth. And the mission is to save souls, develop disciples, lead leaders. And I need to become an exceptional leader. First, you have to work on you before you're able to impact the lives of others. So I'm reading different books on leadership. This one is by John C. Maxwell. If you've been with me, you know this is book number 2 that we're reading. Taking our time, not rushing through it. If I have to go back and read a chapter over and over again, I'll do that. Also taking notes, but since I'm on vacation, I had to go get a new notebook, which my wife did get for me today, but I don't have it with me now. So I'm just going to read, and then I'll get back into writing notes. Eventually, I'll put them in my notebook. Type them all up or whatever, and have it all there so I can go back and look at it throughout this time. Also, if I'll be watching videos, all that. But right now, I've been doing books. So let's get with this. Day number 18, I believe. So day number 18, maybe, of 1,825. Either way, coming every day, hour a day. Don't know what time yet. I'm just coming as long as I get it done that day. It's not about having a set time right now. Maybe eventually I will, but right now it's just about just getting in there. No matter what time of the day, just take that hour out your day and focus on studying leadership. Because I've learned this. One of the things I've learned from John Maxwell is he said this. He says if you study anything 1 hour a day for 5 years straight, you become a master at that subject. So whatever you choose to do. And right now I am choosing to do leadership for the next 5 years. I'm going to be adding some other things to it as well. But right now, don't want to overburden myself. I have a bunch of things that I do outside of this where pastoring gets concerned, family. So let's focus on this now. And we're on page 84 of Becoming a Person of Influence. And it says, listening builds loyalty. Listening builds loyalty. A funny thing happens when you don't make a practice of listening to people. They find others who will. I believe I've read this part already, but let's keep going right from here. Anytime employees, spouses, colleagues, children, or friends no longer believe that that they are being listened to, they seek out people who will give them what they want. Sometimes the consequences can be dangerous. The end of a friendship, lack of authority at work, lessened parental influence, or breakdown of a marriage. On the other hand, practicing good listening skills draws people to you. Carl Menninger, psychiatrist, author, and one of the founders of Menninger's Foundation, says the friends who listen to us are the ones we move toward, and we want to sit in their radius. Everyone loves a good listener and is attracted to him or her. And if you constantly or consistently listen to others, valuing them and what they have to offer, they are likely to develop a strong loyalty to you, even when your authority with them is unofficial or informal. Very good. Listening is a great way to help others and yourself. See something here. All right. Roger G. Imhoff urged, let others confide in you. It may not help you, but it surely will help them. At first glance, listening to others may appear to benefit only them, but when you become a good listener, you put yourself in a position to help yourself too. You have the ability to develop strong relationships, gather informal information, and increase your understanding of yourself and others. Common barriers to listening. Few people have reached their potential when it comes to listening. If you aren't as skilled at listening as you would like to be, then the first thing to do to improve your ability is to be aware of common barriers of listening. Number one. Okay, let's read them. Overvaluing talking. A comic once described listening as being composed of the rude interruptions between my exclamations. Many people's attitude about listening agree with this statement more than they would like to admit. For example, if you ask six people how they could improve their communication skills, most of them would describe the need to become more persuasive or sharpen their public speaking skills. Few would cite a desire to listen better. Most people overvalue talking and undervalue listening, even those in people related jobs such as sales. But the truth is that effective communication is not persuasion, it's listening. Thinking about it, think about it. Nobody ever listened himself or herself out of a sale. Good communication, good communicators know to monitor their talking to listening ratio. Abraham Lincoln, considered one of the most effective leaders and communicators in our nation's history, said, "When I'm getting ready to reason with a man, I spend one third of my time thinking about myself and what I am going to say, and two thirds thinking about him and what he is going to say." That's a good ratio to maintain. Listen twice as much as you speak. For some people, especially those with high energy or lacking focus, is the next one. For some people, especially those with high energy, slowing down enough to really listen can be challenging. Most people tend to speak at about 180 words a minute, but they can listen at 30 or 300 to 500 words a minute. The disparity can create this tension and create a listener to those to lose focus. Let me read that again. That disparity can create tension and cause a listener to lose focus. Most people try to fill up the communication gap by finding other things to do, such as daydreaming. Think about their daily schedule and mentally review their to do list or watch other people. It's similar to what we do when we drive a car. We rarely just watch the road and do nothing else. Usually we look at the scenery, eat and drink, talk, and listen to the radio. If you want to become a better listener, however, you need to learn to direct that energy and attention positively by concentrating on the person you're with. Observe body language. Watch for changes in facial expression. Look into the person's eyes. Management expert Peter Drucker remarked, "The most important thing in communication is to hear what is being said, or hear what isn't being said." Excuse me. Ah, If you expect your extra energy, if you expend your extra energy by observing the other person closely and interpreting what he or she says, your listening skills will improve dramatically. The next one is experiencing mental fatigue. Former President Ronald Reagan told an amusing story about two psychiatrists, an older and younger one. Each day they showed up at work immaculately dressed and alert. But at the end of the day, the younger doctor was frazzled and disheveled, while the older one was as fresh as ever. "How do you do it?" the younger psychiatrist finally asked the colleague. You always stay so fresh after hearing patients all day. The older doctor replied, "It's easy. I never listen." Whenever you listen to others for extended periods of time, the effect can be exhausting. But any kind of mental fatigue can negatively affect your ability to listen. We heard a story about an 89-year-old woman with hearing problems. She visited her doctor, and after examining her, hey baby, hey buddy, examining her, he said, "We now have a procedure that can correct your hearing problem." What's up? Love you, boy. What's up? I just need your face ID for YouTube. Okay. Don't jump on the bed, buddy. You see, I got my thing here. I'm not at home where it's all set up. All right. For YouTube? Okay. All right. Back to our regular scheduled program. Wonderful interruption you are. I love you. We heard a story about an 89-year-old woman with hearing problems. She visited her doctor. Now, usually at home, that never happens. Like my son never interrupts me, but we're on vacation, so they know they have an open door to interrupt me anytime they want to. So let's talk about this 89-year-old woman with hearing problems. She visited her doctor, and after examining her, he said, "We now have a procedure that can correct your hearing problem. When would you like to schedule the operation?" "There won't be any operation because I don't want my hearing corrected," said the woman. "I'm 89 years old and I've heard enough." If you're tired of facing difficult circumstances, remember to remain an effective listener. You have to dig up more energy, concentrate, and stay focused. Stereotyping. Stereotyping others can be a huge barrier to listening. It tends to make us hear what we expect rather than what another person actually says. Most of us think that we don't fall into this trap. Let me see this again. Stereotyping others. It's something because you can read and not be focused. What we just read about. Excuse me. Stereotyping others can be a huge barrier to listening. It tends to make us hear what we expect rather than what another person actually says. Some of us may think that we don't fall into this trap, but we all do to some degree. Read the following humorous type of stereotype breakers from a piece called "Things I'd like to Hear But Won't," created by David Grimes. If you've never if you never expect to hear any of these things from the people listening, excuse me, man, I can't get this out. Let's work on it a second. If you never expect to hear any of these things from the people listed, then you may be guilty of stereotyping. From my auto mechanic. "That part is much less than I thought. You could get that done more cheaply at the garage down the street. It was just a loose wire, no charge." Okay. Let me read this. If you never expect to hear any of these things from the people listed, then you may be guilty of stereotyping. Okay. From a store clerk. Mhm. "The computerized cash register is down. I'll just add up your purchases with a pencil and paper. I'll take a break after I finish waiting on these customers." We're sorry we sold you defective merchandise. We'll pick it up at your home and bring you the new one, or bring you a new one, or give you a complete refund, whichever you prefer. From a contractor. Whoever worked on this before sure knew what they were doing. I think I came in a little high on that estimate. From the dentist. I think you're flossing too much. I won't ask you any questions until I have to have to take the pick out of your mouth. From a restaurateur, server, or restaurant server. I think it's presumptuous for a waiter to volunteer his name, but since you asked, it's Tim. I was slow and inattentive. I cannot accept any tips. So that was from the book called Things I'd Like to Hear But Won't. The statements are clever. They're also a reminder that it's a bad idea to stereotype others. Whenever you treat people strictly as a member of a group rather than as individuals, you can get into trouble. So watch out. If you talk about people or talk to people and find yourself thinking of them as computer geeks, typical teenagers, ditzy blondes, stiff engineer types, or some other representative of a group instead of as individual people, beware. You may not really be listening to what they have to say. All right, let's go. Oh wow, we're already a quarter way through, huh? Carrying personal emotional baggage. Nearly everyone has emotional filters that prevent him or her from hearing certain things that other people say. Your past experiences, both positive and negative, color the way you look at life. And it's all right. Hey, baby.
Hey, Bob.
Hello, Bella Bear.
Hi, Daddy.
Well, come on over. Come on, you can. Mhm. All right. I'll see you later.
See you later.
All right. Once again, nearly everyone has emotional filters that prevent him or her from hearing certain things that other people say. Your past experiences, both negative, positive, color the way you look at life and shape your expectations. And particularly strong experiences, such as traumas or incidents of childhood from childhood. Bella Bear. Oh, thank you, babe. As Mark Twain once said, a cat who sits on a hot stove, will never sit on a hot stove again. He'll never sit on a cold stove either. From then on, the cat just won't like stoves. If you've never worked through strong past emotional experiences, you may be filtering what others say through those experiences. If you're preoccupied with certain topics, if a particular subject makes you defensive, or if you frequently project your point of view onto others, you may need to work through that issue before you can become an effective listener. Sigmund Freud stated, a man with a toothache cannot be in love, meaning that the toothache doesn't allow him to notice anything other than his pain. Wow, that's good. Similarly, anytime a person has an axe to grind, the words of others are drowned out by the sound of the grindstone. Okay, he had to match him. He says, "I got something for you too." All right, here we go. Being preoccupied with self. Here we go. Being preoccupied with self. Probably the most formidable barrier to listening is preoccupation with self. Many years ago, we saw a TV sketch that illustrates this point really well. A husband was watching television and his wife was trying to engage him in conversation. The wife said, "Dear husband, the plumber didn't make it in time to fix the leak by the hot water heater today." Husband, "Uh huh." Wife, "So the pipes burped and flooded the basement." Husband, "Quiet. It's third down and goal to go." Wife, "Some of the wiring got wet and almost electrocuted Fluffy." Husband, "Oh no, they've got a man open. Shoot, down, shoot, touchdown." Wife, "The vet says Fluffy will be better next week." Husband, "Can you get me something to eat?" Wife, "The plumber finally came and said that he was happy our pipe broke because now he can afford to go on vacation." Husband, "Aren't you listening? I said I'm hungry." Wife, "And Stanley, I'm leaving you. The plumber and I are flying to Acapulco in the morning." Husband, "Can't you please stop all that yakking and get me something to eat? The trouble around here is nobody ever listens to me." If you don't care about anyone but yourself, you're not going to listen to others. But the ironic thing is that when you don't listen, the damage you do to yourself is ultimately even greater than what you do to others. Wow, I like that. That was pretty good. How to develop listening skills. Here we go. According to Brian Adams, author of Sales Cybernetics, during the average working day, most people spend most of it listening. He offers the following statistics: 9% of the day is spent writing, 16% of the day is spent reading, 45% of the day is spent speaking, and 30% of the day is spent speaking, and 45% of the day is spent listening. So you probably agree that listening is very important. But what does it mean to listen? We heard a story about a high school music appreciation class that provides a meaningful answer to that question. The teacher of the class asked for a volunteer to explain the difference between listening and hearing. At first, no one wanted to answer, but finally a student raised his hand. When the teacher called on him, he said, "Listening is wanting to hear." That answer is a great start. To become a good listener, you have to want to hear, but you also need some skills to help you. Here are 9 suggestions to help you become a better listener. Let's look at these. Whew. 9 selection, or these 9 suggestions. 23 minutes already in. Listen to this. When you make a decision to do something, you find out it goes pretty quickly. These days have gone. Like, I feel like I just started reading these books and we're at day 18 or 19. I'll find that out after I get done, but it's it's worth it. You might as well just go ahead and just do it. Just get to it. Do it and get to it. All right? Whatever it is. Number 1, look at the speaker. The whole listening process begins with giving the other person your undivided attention. As you interact with someone, don't catch up on other work, shuffle papers, do the dishes, or watch television. Set aside the time to focus only on that person. And if you don't have the time at that moment, then schedule it as soon as you can. Number 2, don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Most people react badly to being interrupted. It makes them feel disrespected. And according to Robert L. Montgomery, author of Listening Made Easy, it's just as rude to step on people's ideas as it is to step on their toes. Probably more rude. Wow. People tend to interrupt others generally. People who tend to interrupt others generally do so for one of these reasons. They don't place enough value on what the other person has to say. They want to impress others by showing how smart or intuitive they are. They're too excited by the conversation to let the other person finish talking. Wow. So don't interrupt. If you have the habit of interrupting other people, examine your motives and determine to make a change. Give people the time they need to express themselves, and don't feel that you or don't feel that one of you have been speaking all the time. Periods of silence give you a chance to reflect on what's been said so that you can respond appropriately. Number 3 of learning how to listen. Focus on understanding. Have you ever noticed how quickly most people forget the things they hear? Studies at institutions such as Michigan State, Ohio State, Florida State, and the University of Minnesota indicate that most people can recall only 50% of what they hear immediately after hearing it. And as time passes, their ability to remember continues to drop. Wow. By the next day, their retention is usually about 25%. One way to combat the tendency is to make your goal understanding rather than just remembering facts. Lawyer, lecturer, and author Herb Cohen emphasized effective listening requires more than hearing the words transmitted. It demands that you find meaning and understanding in what is being said. After all, meanings are not in words but in people. To create your understanding of others as you listen, follow the guidelines offered by Eric Allenball. Number 1, listen with head heart connection. Number 2, listen with intent of understanding. Number 3, listen for the message and the message behind the message. Number 4, listen for content and feelings. Number 5, listen with your eyes. Your hearing will be improved. Number 6, listen for others' interests, not just their opinions. Number 7, listen for what they are saying not saying. Number 8, listen with empathy and acceptance. Number 9, listen for the areas where they are afraid to hurt. Number 10, listen as you would like to be listened to. Wow, that was awesome. Listen as you would like to be listened to. As you learn to put yourself in other person's places or other in the other person's place, your ability to understand will increase. And the greater your ability to understand, the better listener you will become. Number 4. Number 4. Determine the need at the moment. Determine the need at the moment. The ability to discern the other person's need at the moment is part of becoming an effective listener. People talk for so many different reasons: to receive comfort, to vent, to persuade, to inform, to be understood, or to relieve nervousness. That's my wife. My wife talks to relieve nervousness. It took me years to realize that. Often, people talk to you for reasons that don't match your expectations. A lot of men and women find themselves in conflict because they occasionally communicate at cross purposes. They neglect to determine the need of the other person at the moment of the interaction. Men usually want to fix any problems they discuss. Their need is resolution. Women, on the other hand, are more likely to tell about their problems simply to share it. They often neither request nor desire solution. Dang, that's wow. Anytime you determine that anytime you determine the current need of the people you're communicating with, you can put whatever they say into the appropriate context, and you will be better able to understand that. All right. Number 5. Check your emotions. Just about halfway through already. Check your emotions. As we already mentioned, most people carry around emotional baggage that causes them to react to certain people or situations. Anytime that you become highly emotional when listening to another person, check your emotions, especially if your reaction seems to be stronger than the situation warrants. You don't want to make an unsuspecting person the recipient of your venting. Besides, even if your reactions are not due to an event in your past, You should always, let me get this sentence out again. Besides, even if your reactions are not due to an event from your past, you should always allow others to finish explaining their point of view, ideas, or convictions before offering your own. Number six, suspend your judgment. Suspend your judgment. Have you ever begun listening to another person tell you a story and started to respond to it before he or she was finished? Just about everyone has. I know I have. But the truth is that you can't jump to conclusions and be a good listener at the same time. I wonder, like, the thing is, would you rather be a good listener or a good con- uh, conversationalist? Like, or someone who just carries on a conversation where no one is really benefiting from it? I don't want to be. I'd rather be a good listener. I'm going to work on that a lot this week. Just being a good listener. Just sitting back and responding while allow the other person to talk. Maybe asking more questions. We'll see how that goes. Just about everyone has, but the truth is that you can't jump to conclusions and be a good listener at the same time. As you talk to others, wait to hear the whole story before you respond. If you don't, you may miss the most important thing they intend to say, or the most important thing they did not intend to say. Sometimes I've learned that when people talk, you just let them talk, and eventually you hear more than they were originally intending to say. Get more of the story. Number seven, sum up at major intervals. Sum up at major intervals. Let's see what this has to say. Experts agree that listening is most effective when it's active. John H. Melchinger suggests comment on what you hear and individualize your comments. For example, you can say, Cheryl, that's obviously very important to you. Okay, let me see it. The comment on what you hear and individualize your comments. For example, you can say, Cheryl, that is obviously very important to you. It will help you keep on track as a listener. Get beyond that's interesting. If you train yourself to comment meaningfully, the speaker will know you are listening and may offer further information. I wonder if he's going to. Oh, the next one is about to be that because that's my thing. Okay, let's keep going. A technique for active listening is to sum up what the other person says at major intervals. As the speaker finishes one subject, paraphrase his or her main point or ideas before going on to the next one, and verify that you have gotten the message right. During that reassurance, doing that reassures the person and helps you stay on what he or she is trying to communicate. Yeah, that's pretty much it because a lot of times people want to be heard. They're not heard by anyone. Everybody just talks. Number 8, if you want to be an effective listener, ask questions for clarity. Have you ever noticed that top reporters are excellent listeners? Take someone like Barbara Walters, for example. Remember, this book was written in or copywritten in 1997, so it's been a while since we've heard that word, like that name, like Barbara Walters. Okay. She looks at the speaker, focuses on understanding, suspends judgment, and sums up what the person has to say. People trust her and seem to be willing to tell her just about anything. But she practices another skill that helps her to gather more information and increase her understanding of what the person she is interviewing has to say. She asks good questions. If you want to become an effective listener, become a good reporter, not a stick the microphone in your face and bark questions at you reporter, but someone who gently asks follow up questions and seeks clarification. If you show people how much you care and ask in a non threatening way, you'll be amazed how much they'll tell you. Wow. And number 9, always make listening your priority. There it is. You got to prioritize listening if you want to be a good leader. All right. The last thing to remember when developing your listening skills is to make listening a priority. No matter how busy you become or how far you rise in your organization, a remarkable example of a busy executive who made the time for listening. Let me, did I look? Okay. All right, I gotta read that sentence again because I it didn't comprehend. All right. The last thing to remember when developing your listening skills, is to make listening a priority, no matter how busy you become or how far you rise in your organization. A remarkable example of a busy executive who made time for listening was the late Sam Walton, founder of Walmart and one of the richest men in America. He believed in listening to what people had to say, especially his employees. He once flew his plane to Mount Pleasant, Texas, landed. What's going on, big guy? Landed and gave instructions. I told you about jumping on the bed, remember? You good? You need me again, don't you?
The kids are coming out. Oh, man.
It's all right. You can interrupt me. There you go. All right. I love you.
Love you, Sam.
And okay. He believed in listening to what people had to say, especially his employees. He once flew his plane to Mount Pleasant, Texas, landed, and gave instructions to his co pilot to meet him about 100 miles down the road. He then rode in a Walmart truck the rest of the way just so he could chat with the driver. He should have, we should all give listening this kind of priority. All right, let's go. Many people take for granted the ability to listen. Most people consider listening to be easy, and they view themselves as pretty good listeners. I would suspect if I was to ask, maybe I will. I would ask different people, do you think you're a good listener? I wonder how many of them think that they're very good listeners. I know that I could probably be a better one because my profession, I'm always communicating, communicating, communicating. So I'm so used to being in that mode. So now I got to learn how to switch it so I can be a better listener. Because I know I could be a better one. Most of us probably could. So most people consider themselves to be listening to be easy, and they view themselves as pretty good listeners. But while it's true that most people are able to hear, fewer are capable of really listening. In our careers, we have done a lot of speaking. Between the two of us, we speak to several hundred thousands of people a year. Remember, this book is written by John C. Maxwell and Jim Dornan. Jim's wife, Nancy, does a lot of speaking, and believe us, she is a great talker, but she is also a wonderful listener. And sometimes when she speaks, she talks about communication and the importance of listening. Not long ago, she gave a talk about listening that emphasized giving other people the benefit of the doubt and trying to see things from their point of view. In the audience that day was a man named Rodney. Though he was happily married and had a young son, he had been previously married and had two daughters with his first wife. And he was having problems with her. She was constantly calling him and asking him for more money for herself and the two girls. They argued continually, and she was driving him so nuts that he had already hired an attorney. It's attorney. What is that? Hired an attorney and was preparing to sue her. But when Ronnie heard Nancy speak about listening that day, he realized how insensitive he had been to his ex wife, Charlotte. A couple of days later, he called her and asked if they could meet. She was suspicious of Rodney and even asked her attorney to call him to find out what he was up to. But eventually, Rodney convinced them that he just wanted to talk, and finally, Charlotte agreed to see him. They met at a coffee shop, and Rodney said, "Charlotte, I want to listen to you. Tell me what your life is like. I don't care about. I do care about. I'll say I do care about you and the kids. I didn't think you cared about the girls at all," she said as she began to cry. I do, he said. I'm sorry. I've only been thinking about myself, and I haven't been thinking of you. Please forgive me. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because I want to make things right, he answered. I've been angry for so long that I couldn't see straight. Now, tell me how things are going for you and the girls. For a while, Charlotte could only sob. But then she started telling him about her struggles as a single parent and how she was doing her best to bring up the girls, but that it didn't seem like enough. They talked for hours, and as they did, the beginning of a new foundation of mutual respect was formed. In time, they believe they will be able to become friends again. Rodney is probably not alone. Can you think of people you haven't listened to lately? And what are you going to do about it? It's never too late to become a good listener. It can change your life and the lives of the people or in your life. Man, the lives of people in your life. Wow, that was a good story to end with in that chapter. There are a few people I can probably think of that I need to be a better listener to. Maybe I'll take the advice of Rodney and go have some conversations. Chapter number 5. A person of influence understands people. All right. Well, we have a little over 18 minutes, so let's continue reading. I don't know if this is helping you, but it is helping me. The other night over dinner, the two of us were talking, and we started to explore some questions. How does a person build an organization? What does it take? What is the key to being successful? For example, what did it take for a person like Jim to build a business organization that is active in 26 countries and impacts the lives of hundreds of thousands of people? Or in the case of John, what did it take to triple the size of his church, making it the largest in its denomination, and in the process increase its budget from around 800,000 to more than 5 million, and raise active involvement by volunteers from just 112 to more than 1,800 people? Now that interests me. It doesn't matter whether your business is creating computer software, selling books, serving food in a restaurant, building houses, or designing airplanes. The key to success is understanding people, Jim says. I'm not like John. I didn't grow up with an orientation towards people. He took Dale Carnegie's courses while he was still in high school and went off to college knowing he would be in a people job. I went to Purdue University and studied aeronautical engineering. Jesus, aeronautical engineering. By the time I finished with my bachelor's degree, I thought there were two keys to success in any job: hard work and technical skills. It never even occurred to me that people skills had any value. I entered my first job ready to work and loaded with technical knowledge. Purdue had given me a first rate education, and I had always believed in hard work. But it didn't take me long to realize that success in business means being able to work with people. In fact, all my life is dealing. How do you say that? All of life. Okay, okay. In fact, all of life is dealing with people. I found that to be true not only professionally as an engineer, a consultant, or an entrepreneur, but in every aspect of living. Whether I'm interacting with my family, working with one of my kid teachers, or socializing with my friends. If you can't understand people and work well with them, you can't understand or accomplish anything. And you certainly can't become a person of influence. Here we go. Understanding people pays great dividends. In climbing the executive ladder, authors Kenzil and Dare said, few things will pay you bigger dividends than the time and trouble you take to understand people. Almost nothing will add more to your stature as an executive and a person. Nothing will give you greater satisfaction or bring you more happiness. The ability to understand people is one of the greatest assets anyone can ever have. It has the potential to positively impact every area of your life, not just the business arena. For example, look at how understanding people helped this mother of a preschooler. She said, leaving my 4-year-old son in the house, I ran out to throw something in the trash. When I tried to open the door to get back inside, the door was locked. I knew that insisting that my son open the door would have resulted in an hour-long battle of wills. So, in a sad voice, I said, "Oh, too bad. You just locked the door in the house." The door opened itself. Or the door opened at once. Oh, too bad. You just locked yourself in the house. I read that wrong. Oh, bad. Oh, okay. Oh, too bad. You just locked yourself in the house. The door opened at once. Understanding people certainly impacts your life to communicate, or certainly impacts your ability to communicate with others. David Burns, a medical doctor and professor of psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania, observed the biggest mistake you can make in trying to walk convincingly is to put your highest priority on expressing your ideas and feelings. What most people really want is to be listened to, respected, and understood. The moment people see that they are being understood, they become more motivated to understand your point of view. If you can learn to understand people, how they think, what they feel, what inspires them, how they're likely to act and react to in a given situation, then you can motivate and influence them in a positive way. Hmm. Why people fail to understand others. Oh, we're down to our last quarter. Why people fail to understand others. Lack of understanding concerning others is a recurrent search source of tension in our society. We once heard an attorney say, half of all the controversies and conflicts that arise among people are caused not by differences of opinions or inability to agree, but in their lack of understanding for one another. If you could just reduce the number of misunderstandings, the court wouldn't be as crowded. There would be fewer violent crimes, the divorce rate would go down, and the amount of everyday stress most people experience would drop dramatically. If understanding is such an asset, why don't most people practice it? If understanding is such an asset, why don't most people practice it? Here are some reasons. There are many reasons, he says. Fear. Fear. 17th century colonialist William Penn advised, neither despise or oppose what thou dost not understand. Yet many people seem to do exactly that. When they don't understand others, they often react by becoming fearful. And once they start fearing others, they rarely try to overcome their fear in order to learn more about them. It becomes a vicious cycle. Unfortunately, fear is evident in the workplace when it comes to employees' reaction towards their leader. Laborers fear their managers, middle managers are intimidated by senior managers. Both groups are sometimes afraid of executives. The whole situation causes undue suspicion, lack of communication, and reduced productivity. For example, according to Dr. M. Michael Markowitz, Vice President of Human Resources at United Hospitals Incorporated, employees are reluctant to suggest ideas. Here are some of the reasons why. They think their ideas will be rejected. They feel coworkers won't like their ideas. They think they won't get credit for if their ideas work. They're afraid the boss will be threatened by their ideas. They're concerned that they'll be labeled as troublemakers. They're afraid of losing their jobs if they suggest ideas that don't work. The common thread in all of these reasons is fear. Yet, in a healthy work environment, if you give others the benefit of the doubt and replace fear with understanding, everyone can work together positively. All people have to do is follow the advice of President Harry Truman, who said, "When we understand the other fellow's viewpoint, understand what he is trying to do, 9 times out of 10, he is trying to do right." Okay. Another reason why people don't understand is self centeredness. Self centeredness. When fear isn't a stumbling block to understanding, self centeredness often is. Wow. Someone remarked, there are two sides to every question, long as it doesn't concern us personally. Someone remarked, there are two sides to every question, as long as it doesn't concern us personally. That's the way too many people think. Everyone is not self-centered on purpose. It's just in the nature of people to think of their own interest first. If you want to see an example of that, play with a 2-year-old child. He naturally chooses the best toys for himself and insists on his own way. One way to overcome our natural self-centeredness is to try to see things from other people's perspectives. Talking to a group of salespeople, Art Mortel shared his experience. Whenever I'm losing at chess, I constantly get up and stand behind my opponent to see the board from his side. Then I start to discover the stupid moves I've made because I can see it from his viewpoint. The salesperson's challenge is to see the world from the prospect's viewpoint. That's the challenge for every one of us, no matter what our profession. There is a quote that John filed away years ago called A Short Course in Human Relations. You may have already heard it because it's been around for a while, but it reminds us of what our priorities should be when dealing with other people. The least important word, I. The most important word, we. The two most important words, thank you. The three most important words, all is forgiven. The four most important words, what is your opinion? The five most important words, you did a great job. The six most important words, I want to understand you better. Wow. Changing your attitude from self centeredness to understanding requires desire and commitment to always try to see things from the other person's point of view. Failure to appreciate differences. Failure to appreciate differences. Okay, let's read it. The next logical step after leaving behind self centeredness is learning to recognize and respect everyone else's unique qualities. Instead of trying to cast others in your image, learn to appreciate their differences. If someone has a talent that you don't have, great. The two of you can strengthen each other's weaknesses. If others come from a different culture, broaden your horizons and learn what you can from them. Your new knowledge will help you relate not only to them, but also to others, and celebrate people's differences in temperament. Variety makes for interesting dynamics between people. That's something I've learned, and it took me a long because even in preaching and teaching, you have people in the same denomination who believe the same things, but they'll say one's anointed and another one's entertaining. Why? Because one guy teaches it one way and the other person teaches it another way. One day I was doing a little study for myself, This was some years ago. And at the time, the two most popular preachers, in my opinion, that I that were in the, I guess you could say, the faith camp or whatever the particular denomination was, T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen. And I was looking at what they were saying. And T.D. Jakes, he has a very boisterous style where he's gonna sweat, he's gonna preach, he's gonna be theatrical and all that, and that draws people in, and people like that personality. Where Joel Osteen, to me, he's more concise, straight to the point, um, short. I mean, his message is going to be short, 30, 20, 25 minutes, 26 minutes, 28 minutes altogether, I think, with, or 26 minutes, around 26 minutes. And their styles are very much different, but they're preaching pretty much the same thing. And someone was like, T.D. Jakes is anointed, Joel Osteen is not. And then Joel Osteen's anointed, and T.D. Jakes is not. I'm like, hold it. They're preaching the same exact message, just about. But people couldn't see the difference because they can't get past the personality or the way they can't appreciate the differences in them. All right, well, let's see what we can get through now. All right. For example, okay. For example, John has a choleric sanguine temperature or temperament, which means he loves to have fun and enjoys making decisions in the blink of an eye. On the other hand, John, let me see if I can say this word. Jim is a melancholy phlegmatic. He is a great thinker and processor of information, and when he needs to make a decision, he gathers as much data as he can to make a wise choice. Separate we do well, but we're even more effective when the two of us are together. Once you learn to appreciate differences, other people's differences, you can come to realize that there are many responses to leadership and motivation. Joseph Beck, the president of Keenly Corporation, recognized that truth when he said that an influencer must realize that different people are motivated in different ways. A good basketball coach, for example, knows when a player needs encouragement to excel or when a player needs a kick in the pants. That main difference is excuse me, the main difference is that all players need encouragement and only some need a kick in the pants. All right. Failure, got a minute and a half? Okay, let's read another paragraph. Failure to acknowledge similarities. As you learn more about people and get to know others well, you soon begin to realize that people have a lot in common. We all give hopes, we all have hopes and fears, joys and sorrows, victories and problems. Probably the time when people are less likely to recognize their common ground with others is during adolescence. Most of the time, okay. We came across a story that illustrates this. A teenage girl was talking to her father about her problems. She told him all the terrible peer pressure she faced, about conflicts with friends, and difficulties with school workers and teachers. In an attempt to help her, he put everything in perspective. He told her that life was not as dark as it might seem, and in fact, much of her worries was perhaps unnecessary. That's easy for you to say, Dad, she replied. You already have all your problems over with. That was a good one. We'll pick up there tomorrow. I believe it'll be day 19 or 20 of 1825, where we study the subject of leadership. Till then, keep walking by faith. And always remember, who the Son sets free is free indeed. Love you.